The Retirement Cafe podcast, busting 10 myths about aging for the new year. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello and welcome to the first episode of 2023. A very happy new year to you. I plan to start 2023 on a high note by dispelling some of the more commonly held beliefs about how awful it is to get older. I feel that many people make assumptions about aging and what it's like to grow old, or how older age will affect them. I'm sure that I do, and I know Kathy, who's here with me today, isn't exactly relishing the thought of getting older. The reality is that we won't know until it happens to us, but some of our assumptions are probably true. For example, I know for a fact that my muscle mass is declining with age, so I make sure that I lift weights 4 to 5 times a week to try and combat this loss. But so many of our beliefs come from socially accepted myths, and if you take the time to challenge them, you'll realize that, for the most part, they're simply not true. There's no evidence. It's all too easy to pass by the positive aspects of aging, of which I understand there are many. In this New Year episode, Kathy will help me bust 10 common misconceptions or beliefs relating to aging and older people. Hello, Kathy.
Hello, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So let's get cracking with the first one. And the first of those myths is depression and loneliness are normal in older adults. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's talked about a lot, isn't it, with adolescents and young adults, are struggling with mental health. But actually, it is an issue throughout the generations. It's not just that age group. It's middle ages. It's elderly ages. So it's throughout society and throughout age groups. The social scientists who spend their days researching what makes us happy have shown there's something known as the U-curve of happiness, which suggests that our contentment with life grows with age. However, much older people can end up becoming and feeling isolated and alone, but it's not inevitable.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a challenge when people get much older. Perhaps they're widowed, they're on their own, and these kind of circumstances tend to make us feel a little bit more and be a little bit more isolated. And I think people are a bit more vulnerable possibly at that stage, aren't they? Yeah. But generally speaking, I think from the evidence suggests that it's absolutely not inevitable. It's not inevitable, and it's not normal. No. So anyone who is really suffering from depression and feeling incredibly lonely, there are a lot of resources out there, aren't there?
Absolutely. And I think, we've covered it many times in the podcast, but I think that you've got to accept that as you get older, you've probably got, as we know, we were talking to people, lots of our elderly relatives, there are less friends around because they've already died. So it's just kind of being conscious that actually, how can you counter that and not to counter it, suddenly trying to counter it in your mid 80s or 90s, etc. Actually kind of think, okay, so how can I be part of a community? How can I be part of something greater than myself? How can I interact with other people, being available, joining clubs, joining societies, meeting and being part of your neighborhood, is something which can be done at any age, of course. And but actually there are positive things, that the steps that an aging person can take.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on to number two, myth number two, the older I get, the less sleep I need. I'm not sure you could have much less sleep, Justin. What do you reckon?
Well, it is true that all adults need about the same sleep, 7 to 9 hours. And I think a lot of older people do suggest that they do sleep less, whether we know that's actually not a good thing. It is significantly important to our health and well-being. It does seem to be a thing that is harder as we, to get a full night's sleep as we age. I know gentlemen of a certain age complain to me that they're having to get up in the night, maybe more often than they used to. But it still is important to get a full night's sleep as we get older.
Yes, absolutely. So I suppose summing that one up, it can often be harder to get a full night's sleep, but we do not need less sleep as we get older.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we still need the 7 to 9 hours. Okay, number three, older adults can't learn new things.
Well, you know what I feel about that. Complete rubbish. I don't know what the definition of aging is, but, I think we just got to keep taking on new things, create new memories, and improve our performance of the things that we're already doing. A lifetime of knowledge and experience can help us learn new stuff because we've got the tactics and the strategies to actually help us take on new stuff, and because we know the effort involved and the commitment involved to do new things. But of course, we've got the experience of what works for us. And, taking on new stuff and getting new connections in our brains keeps dementia at bay. And, of course, it's significantly important for our cognitive health. So I absolutely commend, I'm always trying to encourage clients that we're talking to, what are you going to learn in the next 12 months? What will be the fantastic year in front of you, which you've learned, maybe think about learning a new musical instrument or learning to cook or maybe it's a language to do, so whatever would enhance your life and that will have some importance to you.
Yes, and there's a lot of data out there now, isn't there? A lot of evidence how important learning something, but also within a social kind of environment. So actually, the challenge of social interactions and engagements is almost the biggest, most important thing that we can do, as we age to keep our brains active and healthy. And I look at she's my great aunt, actually. She won't thank me for saying that, but Di, who I find she's just incredible. I think she's certainly over 85 now, and she's continually learning. She's fascinated by history, and she studies course after course after course, I think through the U3A. I may be wrong with that, but she's always learning about a different part of history. And I'm sure that really helps to keep her sharp and on the ball, and she's completely on the ball. She's all there, more than all there. I think it's phenomenal to see. Great. I
recently had a conversation, I remember, around the dinner table about a politics course that she'd undertaken, and it was absolutely fascinating. She taught me a thing or two.
Absolutely. And definitely over 85. She's, phenomenal. So she's got a thing or two to teach us as well, I think. Yeah. So no, as we get older, we do not lose the ability to learn. No. So that's great. No. Okay, myth number 4. Oh, this is a tough one. It is inevitable that I will get dementia.
Well, of course, it's a big fear, isn't it? But it's not a normal part of aging. I mean, you're absolutely right. The risk does increase, especially for over 65. But forgetfulness is not dementia. Forgetfulness is a normal as we get older. So it's just not, it's just not absolutely sure that you are going to get dementia. And of course, there's lots and lots of stuff that we've covered in the podcast before about what you can do. And of course, as we know, staying fit, staying strong, eating well, getting exercise will really, really enhance your ability not to get dementia.
Absolutely. So it's not inevitable. And that feeds into leads on to myth number 5, which is a family member has or has had Alzheimer's disease, so I will have it too.
Yeah. And of course, sadly, there is some truth to this. It could be possible that you've inherited certain genes that your risk does increase. But as I mentioned before, lifestyle choices can significantly reduce the risk. So it's definitely not certain that you'll get Alzheimer's if your parents had it. But yeah, even if that is genetically kind of built into your DNA, try and fight it by doing all the right things to enhance your life so that it reduces your probability.
Yeah, and there is a lot we can do, a lot more than perhaps some people realise to keep control of that, isn't there, as much as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one for you. You'll like this one. So number 6, when I'm older, I should take it easy and avoid exercise so I don't get injured.
Well, for someone who seems to get injured all the time, but mostly because I'm falling over on a hockey pitch. Yeah, it's nuts. Physical activities are just great for us. And of course, there's plenty of safe stuff that you can do. Really, you don't have to tear around a hockey pitch and get whacked by a hockey ball or a stray stick. Gardening, walking, tai chi, swimming, weightlifting. You can go and work out of the gym, and they've got all these kind of high-tech machines, which is what I actually use mostly rather than those kind of free weight dumbbells, because they control the movement, and therefore you can really control the amount of stress that you put under your body under, and also it controls the movement, which in essence stops the chance of doing an incorrect movement, and then of course pulling something or damaging something. So yeah, there really is a lot to do in life with exercise that probably won't cause injury. Lots of people I know I've talked to over the years have said, my knees are past it now, and I think there is an element of of course with wear and tear. I mean, if you've done a lot of running over your lifetime, that possibly, perhaps, if you speak to many consultants, they will say, well, the joint has worn out, and yet we can replace knees and you can replace hips and you can do all types of stuff. But it may not mean that you're going to be jumping back on the squash court again. But there's so many, just because one thing is now close to you doesn't mean that you can't take something else up, which is still significant benefit to you, and you can continue to do into a later life.
Absolutely. And I think looking at just our local leisure centre, there's so many different classes you can do now, aren't there? From everything from, gentle yoga to Tai Chi is just phenomenal, isn't it? For balance and stability and core strength. So many different types of activities you can try. So just keeping moving.
Yes, and just a thought that our youngest daughter Amy, who's 11, she said to me the other day. She said, "Daddy, I think you should drop one of your weightlifting sessions for an additional Pilates class." I said, "Amy, why is that?" Wondering, what insight. You said, "Well, you are groaning a lot more as you're getting out of the chair," and she said, "I feel that you would benefit from a Pilates class," and she's absolutely right. Probably, she's absolutely right that maybe I should drop one of the weightlifting sessions and do another Pilates class.
Brilliant. I love that. And Professor Samir Gray, who we've obviously had on the podcast a couple of times, he has this phrase, doesn't he, about the excessive sitting syndrome, and how, in essence, we all spend far too long sitting down, and how bad that is for us. And it's probably easy to get into a habit of doing that, isn't it? I know we do at work. We spend more time sitting down, or particularly working in an office, but I think as we get older, depending on how full and busy our lives are, it's tempting to sit quite a lot too. So it's finding ways not to do that, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But absolutely don't avoid exercise. Don't take it too easy.
No.
Okay, so number 7. Now that I am older, I will have to give up driving.
Well, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, it must be really hard, isn't it? If you've driven for 50, 60 years, suddenly that you've got to give up driving. It is not necessarily the case. our 94-year-old neighbour, next door neighbour, Peggy, only stopped driving a couple of years ago, and probably only a year or so ago gave up her bicycle. And she just said, that she felt her responses weren't quite as quick as possible, quite as quick as they needed to be for the road. I mean, only you really going to know. You might get some advice from your children, or maybe the authorities. I don't know, but it isn't inevitable. So. I think you should try and keep doing it as long as you can, really. And obviously, you've got to keep safe. You've got to keep straightforward. But I think most people probably know at the right time when that is the right time to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on to number 8. Only women need to worry about osteoporosis, and obviously that's a big issue for women, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you probably can talk about this more so than I, but I mean, it's not true. I mean, women are more likely to have osteoporosis because they start with less bone density than men. And by 65 or 70, men and women lose bone mass at the same rate. 1 in 5 men over 50 will have an osteoporosis-related fracture.
Now that's quite high, isn't it?
It is.
It's much higher than I thought it would have been.
Yeah, and I remember having a conversation only this year with our physiotherapist and Tim, and he was telling me Tim's probably listens to the podcast, so I want to be careful about his age. But I think he's late 50s, probably, maybe even touching 60. I don't know. He's a pretty fit guy, though. He's on his feet all the time. He's working out. He knows obviously what to do. He cycles, he runs, he does, hill walking. He's all over it. And but he was telling me about a pal of his who'd had a bicycle accident and really quite, came off his bike and really damaged himself, really broke his femur, I think. Really horrible position to be in. And then, of course, months and months and months of recovering from that. And Tim also then said he'd had a accident himself on his bicycle and come off, and really, other than being a bit badly shaken and a bit bruised, etc., really didn't have much long-term damage. And he put that down to, he thought that the accidents were comparable to each other, but the reality was, because he works out and he does a lot of strength training and his muscle mass is good and his tonality is good, etc., that his body could take the knock much more than his pals. So again, that is that aspect of if do the weightlifting, do the strength training, etc., because it's just going to protect you for so long against this issue of having a fall and breaking a bone.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a very interesting story, isn't it? And the risk factors are the same for men and women. So if you've got a family history of osteoporosis, if you've got low levels of calcium or low levels of vitamin D, or again, do too little exercise, again, back to the weightlifting, back to some resistance against your bones and your muscles, then, and things like, probably the obvious things like smoking or drinking too much, low levels of testosterone. These are all factors I suppose, risk factors. But once you're on that level playing field, men are as likely after a certain age to have osteoporosis as women. So men also need to be aware of the watch out signs, the warning signs, don't they?
Yeah.
So it's osteoporosis is something not to worry people, but it's something to be mindful of. Another thing to try and prevent.
Yeah, and of course, as so many of these things are things that we can take action on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so number 9. So you could put into this box kind of anything really, but I'm too old to quit smoking. It's not worth it. So you could say I'm too old to do anything, but in essence, let's take quit smoking. I'm too old to quit smoking. It's not worth it. Well,
I mean, you probably know more about this than I do. I know that once upon a time you were actually, when you, in a previous career, when you were working with the pharmaceutical companies, helping them do marketing, etc., I know that you worked on the helping people quit smoking. So yeah, maybe you can answer to the physical or the mental facts that shift if you do manage to quit smoking.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, whenever you quit is better than continuing to smoke. So quitting at any age will improve your health. So anyone who says that it's too late, it's not worth it, really has a bit of a death wish, I suppose. And the benefits are almost instant. So your carbon monoxide levels reduce within hours of having that last cigarette. Your circulation improves within weeks, as does your lung function. And not to mention, obviously, your reduced risk of heart conditions might take a little bit longer to kick in. But in essence, the quitting is the best thing you can do for your health, probably, if you're still a smoker as you're getting older. And it's absolutely not too late. So you will have done some damage, but it's not too late to stop that damage, and to a degree, start reversing the damage as well. So that is absolutely one myth to dispel.
Yeah, and there's so many ways to do it now. I know that the NHS has numerous ways to help people quit smoking, and there's all types of books and kind of hypnotherapy, and there's so many different ways to help people to do that. So if that's something that you commit to 2023 to do, please do so, because I think everyone around you will benefit from improving your health, and of course, first of all, you will. So I really can suggest that all that support out there is there to help you, and that recovery your body has is quite amazing. Even if you've been a 30-40 year or 30 smoker, that your body does try and mend itself very quickly.
Yeah. Okay, finally, number 10, the 10th myth of aging: older people contribute very little to society.
Well, that's again, maybe it's just a generational thing that I think if you're, maybe in your teenager years or your 20s or something, you're looking at older people and kind of wondering, what's the point and why they're here, and they're just, what are they adding to the society? And of course, the reality is that they're adding tons. Here in Christchurch, where we see a large retired community, there are so many volunteers. There are people doing community things. We've got this Friars Forum kind of thing for the local community. We've got people in the church. I think older people are hugely valued in our community. And they're stepping in so often to be carers, and maybe grandparents are stepping in to look after younger children, allowing people to go to work. So yeah, I think it's a horrible comment that people can think that the older people are a burden or not contributing, because it's just so untrue. That actually, I do wonder how on earth society would cope without the retired or the older generation, and the amount of things that they do and contribute to.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you only need to go into the Regent Centre here in our little cinema here, and Christchurch, and all the volunteers there are retirees, aren't they? You look at, again, back to Peggy, our next door neighbour, 94, nearly 95 herself, but she pops around to visit her elderly neighbours who, need a bit of companionship and need a letter taken to the post box or whatever it might be. I think that older generations have a very strong work ethic, generally speaking, and can really act as great mentors to other people or younger people doing on their kind of earlier stages of development or career, whatever they might be doing, and share all those years of skills and experience. So it's not just about giving. I think, as when you give, you actually get a lot back in return as well. So it's kind of a win-win. But I think we certainly see here older generations giving a huge amount to the community. Massive contributors.
Absolutely, and it's not only it's not only that kind of community side, but it's that skills and knowledge. I do know that past or retired teachers often are still kind of doing coaching and additional lessons for people who are struggling or go into schools, etc., to do different things. I know there's a a group here locally again of I think mostly males who are kind of retired business people who help out in doing different different things with enterprise schemes in schools. So there's the opportunity for people who've suddenly managed to get to or got to the point where they are financially independent from going to work, and therefore what we can call retirement, but I'm not convinced that it's that kind of classic retirement of just playing golf. They're actually giving back and contributing to society in so many different ways. Also, they are, they're spending money, and therefore by spending money, they're paying tax and they're contributing into the economic society as well. So, I'm a great fan of the retired community for everything that they do.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So that's 10 myths about aging. Hopefully we've busted all 10 of them.
Absolutely. That's the 10 myths about aging, hopefully busted. But, some of these things could be worrying you about getting older and what lies ahead. And I think there are some key things to think about as you move forward with age. And I think one of the first things is ideally is to say, what would the next 12 months, if I've got another 12 months to live, and we never know how long we've got, of course, but if you've got another, what would this make this 12 months fantastic? Think about your health, think about your community, think about where you want to do, the experiences you want to have, what points you can give back, what friendships you can make. There's a lot of opportunity out there for all of us to shape each and every one of our years as we go forward. And I do think that, the actual real benefit, of course, of getting old is, the alternative is not great, is it? The alternative of not getting old is that you've already exited the planet. And of course, as we all get older, we all know somebody who's already gone before and left us. And so if you're still here and you're still breathing and kicking, etc., then that's fantastic. And let's just make a strategy and a plan to make sure that 2023 really is just the most wonderful year, because none of us know how many years we've got ahead of us. So fill it full of friendships, of laughter and of experiences and knowledge and helping our community. And if we all do that, I think we can end the year by going, that was a great year. What a great year to be alive. And we can't do an awful lot about what the politicians are doing or the economic scenario and all the bad news that we hear about, but we can do an awful lot to impact our own personal lives. As I said, making sure that you're keeping fit and looking after yourself, and maybe looking after some people around and about, which you can get a lot of satisfaction from as well. So take control of 2023. There's a lot of opportunity out there for all of us to shape this forthcoming year. Thank you as always for tuning into the Retirement Cafe podcast. I really, really do appreciate it. I know Kathy does as well. Especially thank you for tuning into this New Year's episode. As always, if you want to get in touch, you can get a hold of us at hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter at JustinKingCFP. And of course, you can find all the episodes on my YouTube channel. Just search for Justin_King when you get to the YouTube search box. So until next time, I am Justin King, and I'm here to help you feel more informed in your retirement.